Tonight, Ontario is easing long-term care home restrictions.
Being able to bring her to my house to have dinner with us, she'll be very excited.
The province updating the rules. Hugs will now be allowed for everyone, as well as day and overnight trips for those who are fully vaccinated. Plus,
with the Delta variant on track to potentially become the dominant strain in our community within the next 4 weeks.
Peel's top doctor warns about the Delta COVID variant as cases spread in his region. How concerned should we be? And
under any circumstance, I could never see myself treating anybody like that.
An Indigenous man who is partially paralyzed has filed a complaint against a Toronto hospital, saying he was kicked out and left in the cold in a wheelchair he couldn't operate. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. The province is relaxing restrictions in long-term care homes. Thanks to high vaccination rates, residents will now be allowed to engage in closer physical contact with their loved ones, and they'll soon be able to leave the homes for outings. Ardelia Ashry has more.
Beginning next Wednesday, long-term care home residents who've been fully vaccinated will be able to leave their facilities for day and overnight trips.
Being able to bring her to my house to have dinner with us, it's like her life will feel 99% back to normal.
This was as close as Susan Asa-Katz was able to get to her mom back in March. Then last month, the province began allowing physically distanced outdoor visits. Now they can get even closer. The province also announced today brief hugs will be permitted regardless of the vaccination status of the resident or visitor.
Human beings need, sunlight, nature, physical touch, things that we've deprived a lot of long-term care residents of over the last 15 months.
Dr. Nathan Stahl is a geriatrician. He says this is another step towards normalcy.
These are just basic human needs that are being restored, and I anticipate they will have an impact on the mental health and well-being of these residents.
Asa-Katz says she's thrilled her mother can now look forward to seeing her great-grandchildren beyond just a screen.
Have a barbecue with us, sit in the chair in the backyard, where I can provide the shade that she needs, but still let her get outside.
Going to their daughter's house or their son's house, who may be fully vaccinated as well, for sort of a one-night respite from the long-term care home. But I think if it's for these sort of larger family or social gatherings, try and do it outdoors.
For anyone thinking of taking their loved one to a cottage, Dr. Stahl says it's still too early.
We still have to follow what the local public health guidance is at the moment. It's not that the cottage in and of itself is unsafe. It's moving around to other public health units. Residents
who have mobility or health issues are also now allowed to have one visitor inside their facility in addition to an essential caregiver. Dahlia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
Premier Doug Ford says he's hopeful the province can move into stage 1 of reopening earlier than expected. Ontario's Chief Medical Officer of Health says he wants to see if there's been an uptick in cases from the Victoria Day long weekend before making that call.
Our percent positivity has come down, but our data may indicate that we may be up a little bit higher again tomorrow, maybe close to 900. So that's concerning as we watch this trend, and hopefully we can turn that around as soon as possible.
There were 870 new cases of COVID reported in Ontario today, up from 733 yesterday and 699 on Tuesday. Now, the good news, today's test positivity is the lowest it has been in nearly 3 months, and the 7-day average of daily cases fell to its lowest point since November. Public health officials are becoming increasingly concerned over the B1617 variant, also known as the Delta variant. Now, it spreads faster and is more dangerous than any COVID-19 strain we've seen before. And according to Peel Region's top doctor, it could drive a 4th wave. Jessica Ng reports.
The Delta variant on track to potentially become the dominant strain in our community within the next 4 weeks.
Dr. Lawrence Lowe, Peel Region's Medical Officer of Health, says his area has the highest concentration of B1617, first seen in India and all of Ontario. 97 cases, with community spread linked to workplaces.
It's 50% more transmissible than the Alpha variant.
And more likely to put you in a hospital, according to University of Toronto epidemiologist Ashley Chute.
There's about a 2 to 2.5 fold increase in risk of hospitalization with Delta relative to Alpha.
By mid-May, the newer Delta variant represented 80% of cases in the UK, and they started their vaccination campaign before Canada.
There's international precedent set with this in the United Kingdom in Bolton, where they rushed in second doses to a community that was seeing significant Delta variant activity.
Lowe says he hopes Ontario follows the UK's example, bumping vaccine deliveries to Peel like they did in May. This time to fully vaccinate Peel's essential workers, as protection against this variant goes up significantly with shot number 2. Currently,
we have first dose coverage of approximately 72%, and we have second dose, i.e. completed vaccination coverage, of 4%.
The health minister says they're looking at opening up second doses across the board.
We are examining the potential for expanding that to all age groups to make sure that anybody who wants to receive their second vaccine can get one as quickly as possible.
Elliott says they're focused on making sure the province isn't headed for another lockdown.
And this is Gurpinder, one of our supervisors.
That message echoed by Ford as he toured the new Hockey Hub vaccination clinic. It's being hosted in Brampton, which has 2/3 of Peel's Delta cases.
We're going to have a great end of June and great July and August. We just can't wait. So let's get the second doses into people's arms.
Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
Starting tomorrow in Ontario, individuals who received the AstraZeneca vaccine at least 12 weeks ago and wish to get it for their second shot can do so. The province is also allowing people who got a first dose of AstraZeneca to mix it with another vaccine. Beginning on June 7th, those who got the AstraZeneca vaccine will be able to book their second shot of either Pfizer or Moderna through the province's central booking system or through their local public health unit. Ontario's move to allow vaccine mixing was expected after the National Advisory Committee on Immunization updated its guidance on the practice earlier this week. There is some scrambling going on tonight among school officials after yesterday's announcement that schools can hold outdoor in-person graduation ceremonies for all grades. Most of these events were planned to be virtual, and changing now means overcoming a number of challenges.
It will be tremendously difficult to pull something like that off. We have about 240,000 students.
The Toronto District School Board says an outdoor gathering may sound simple, but requires a lot of planning, such as including washroom facilities and screening students for COVID if they use the washrooms inside the school. According to an anecdote by the Premier yesterday, this plan emerged after he went to visit a young student who wrote to him and wanted to be back in class.
He said, Arthur, this is a situation. I'm going to bring it to cabinet. I was very upfront with him, but I'm really concerned about putting all the kids in the classroom. At the end, he said, I'd be happy if we had a graduation day, and that's for all grades.
A statement from the Ontario Principals Council says with only a few weeks left, schools have already made plans to celebrate their graduates. This is simply not possible or practical, calling it unrealistic and disrespectful to Ontario educators. The Premier's office says it'll be up to school boards and local public health units to decide the best way to celebrate their students. Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Colette, we've been getting some much needed rain in some parts with more showers to come.
Yeah, it's nice that we got, it wasn't a totally soaking rain, but we saw, give or take, about 10 millimeters from the system that went through last night into this morning. Into tomorrow morning, probably a little drier, but in the afternoon, better chance of seeing some pop-ups again. So a few scattered showers and thunderstorms could give us a little bit more moisture. But the other thing, the moisture content of the air, the stickiness, how it feels, that's going to be going up, especially as we get towards the weekend. So you see, if you just look at the contours here, the colors and the oranges and getting into the reds, how Saturday it's beginning to move into the lower Great Lakes, kind of taking over all of Ontario into Quebec by Sunday, and Monday streaming over towards Atlantic Canada. So that heat's going to come in. The humidity and humidex values up towards 40 and lasting till about Thursday of next week. The only thing to contend with, though, for tomorrow, like I said, a few scattered showers or thunderstorms into the afternoon. There'll be some sun mixed in there as well. The wind's a little bit breezy. Tonight, 16. Tomorrow, up to at least 27, if not 28.
Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
I'm getting worried day by day.
Hundreds of thousands of permanent residents are waiting to take their Canadian citizenship tests. The backlog growing larger day by day, with no timeline given how applicants are coming together to push the government to take charge. That's coming up. A man is facing second-degree murder charges in connection with the death of his wife on a trail in Brampton yesterday.
The couple went for a walk earlier that evening and obviously failed to return. Some circumstances must have unfolded which caused this altercation to go to this level in which it appears that he took her life.
Peel police were contacted around 9 o'clock last night about a woman found unconscious on a trail near Ross Road and Temple Hill Road. Police arrived to find the woman suffering from signs of trauma. She died at the scene. Police have identified her as 64-year-old Dalbir Randawa. Her husband, Jarnail Randawa, was arrested. Investigators are asking anyone with information to contact them. An Indigenous man who is partially paralyzed says he was left outside a downtown Toronto hospital in a wheelchair he couldn't operate. He called 911 after feeling faint and having chest pain. But before being seen by a doctor, he says he was kicked out of the ER for swearing and had to struggle to return home. Our Angelina King has his story.
Charles Husson still can't believe this happened to him. Security video shows him struggling to get to the elevator in his apartment lobby, first scooting along a bench, then using the walls for support before finally making it safely.
Oh, that was really difficult. Like, I was afraid of falling and injuring my back again.
Husson uses a motorized wheelchair after an infection led to spinal cord surgery a year ago.
So this is the spot where they had left me.
On a cold night in January, he says security left him outside of St. Michael's Hospital alone in a wheelchair he couldn't operate.
I could never treat anybody like that. Under any circumstance.
Husson says security kicked him out for swearing about the nearly 6-hour wait, and a doctor told them to do so. He says he wasn't swearing at anyone directly and he wasn't yelling. He also says he was never assessed by a doctor.
Oh, that made me feel like I wasn't worthy.
After about 45 minutes of waiting outside, a taxi took him home. The next day, he went to a different hospital and got tests, eventually being diagnosed with an infection at a different clinic. After getting the video, he filed a complaint with the hospital last month. In it, he says he wants one security guard fired, the nurse and doctor involved reprimanded, an apology and compensation. He believes being Indigenous was a factor, saying another man was swearing at staff, but he wasn't kicked out.
So this is just unconscionable.
Street pastor Doug Johnson Hatlam helped Husson file the complaint. He says it's like deja vu. 10 years ago, the same hospital settled a lawsuit with Husson's brother, apologized and fired 2 guards after allegations they beat and left him outside.
It's really infuriating that didn't get resolved permanently. What's it going to take?
The hospital says, well, it can't comment on specific cases. It takes racism allegations seriously and will investigate. It outlined how it's working to dismantle anti-Indigenous racism and acknowledged that racism in Canadian institutions is, quote, experienced by many Indigenous people during hospital visits as the norm rather than the exception.
People will avoid going into healthcare because they're out of self-preservation, out of protection for themselves, out of fear.
Shirley Bourgeois is a midwife and worked on a 4-year research project that found in Toronto more than 1 in 4 Indigenous adults reported being treated unfairly by healthcare providers because of their identity, and that 71% experienced racism that stopped or delayed them from returning to get healthcare. Bourgeois says she wasn't surprised to hear of Husson's story.
It is happening in every hospital across every city in our country, and we need to be willing to look at that.
Husson says ultimately he wants the hospital to acknowledge he was mistreated, even though he'll never seek care there again.
I wouldn't feel good coming back here.
Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
The backlog of permanent residents waiting to take their Canadian citizenship test is growing day by day, with many frustrated not just by the delay, but by the lack of updates and a timeline. I spoke to the head of a Toronto advocacy group that is demanding the government do more, and with a permanent resident about how the prolonged wait is impacting her.
Actually, I'm getting worried more and more.
Almost 2 years since applying to become a Canadian citizen, Saida Umar is still waiting to take her citizenship test. She works as a quality engineer for a car company in Woodstock, a job that requires travel outside the country. The delay has been preventing that.
My colleagues are volunteering and stepping up in my place to do my work. So I cannot do this every year. Like, I cannot lose these opportunities. I cannot leave the projects that I am responsible for just because I'm not a Canadian citizen and because only a test is holding me back.
In terms of backlog, is continuously growing.
Asan Umar is the head of the group Advocates for Citizenship Tests. He says the delays have impacted many applicants' job prospects and study opportunities and prevented some from visiting ailing family members abroad.
Over 100,000 Canadian residents who work, study, go to school, and call Canada basically their permanent home are not able to join the Canadian family because of 20 multiple choice questions.
The group lodged an access to information request that reveals the backlog of permanent residents ready to take a citizenship test grew from 87,566 people in September 2020 to well over 102,000 by January of this year. The vast majority had been waiting for more than 13 months. The typical time frame is 12 months. After canceling testing last March due to the pandemic, the IRCC resumed testing in November, shifting them online. It said it sent out nearly 66,000 online test invitations by the end of April, with more than 43,000 people having completed them. But Asan says those rates are far from enough to make up for the backlog.
Files are coming at pre-COVID level, and you're taking the test at pre-COVID level. Okay, but you have a big backlog in between. Who's going to handle that backlog? So it means that some short-term, aggressive, and deliberate strategy needs to be implemented to first handle that backlog before streamlining into normal mode.
In a public letter to Immigration Minister Marco Mendicino this week, signed by more than 100 citizenship applicants, the group requests IRCC clear all applications that have been in process for more than 18 months within the next 90 days. The minister's office did not respond to our request for comment by deadline, though he did have this to say at a recent press conference.
Keep the faith. More digital testing and citizenship ceremonies are coming to you.
Like, how long do I need to be patient? Like, at least if I know by December or September, I would be able to calm my management. I would be able to calm myself.
People feel like being hostage to a system that doesn't have a timeline, that doesn't have a predictability.
Asan says the group is considering holding another rally when the province opens up if Ottawa does not fulfill their requests. Partly cloudy this evening with fog patches developing overnight. It is currently 18 degrees in downtown Toronto. Let's go back to Colette now with a look at your extended forecast. And Colette, it's going to be heating up as we head into the weekend.
Is it ever, Kelda? Yeah, we are looking at some extreme heat, the kind of stuff where we're going to have to start to really take it easy. We may see some heat warnings being issued. In fact, it's quite likely because even the overnight lows are going to be in that range of around 20 degrees. So we'll meet that criteria. I do want to point out that tomorrow, for your first headline, we are looking at some scattered showers or thunderstorms through the day as a weak system is kind of passing through, so especially into the afternoon hours. But by the weekend, we're going to see those temperatures going to 30 degrees or warmer. So that's just what's being read on the thermometer. It's also the fact that our dew points are going to go up, so the Humidex values get to near 40 by Sunday, and they're going to stay there for a few days. We get 3 days in a row. A heat wave, there is an official thing. You need 3 days in a row where it's 31 degrees or warmer, and it's a good chance that we're going to get an official one. But it's the kind of thing like many of us just refer to it as one, even that kind of mini that we had back in May. Daytime highs today. Hey, that system brought the temperatures down a little bit, so 22. Different story into tomorrow. And just having a look, the overnight hours are pretty quiet. Now, I do want to mention that a few areas will see some dense fog, like it'll be pretty localized, but into tomorrow morning. Then we'll lose that. We do have some sun mixing with cloud in the afternoon, and then these things happen. Yeah, these kind of spotty showers showing up. A few areas getting a little heavier downpour, kind of locally with a few thunderstorms. And then that rolls out. There's still going to be some cloud cover and even a little bit of wet weather into eastern Ontario, but we're going to see a lot of sun moving in and kind of holding on for the weekend as we go through the GTA back into southwestern Ontario, where the temperatures for tonight, you see, tomorrow heating up, already feeling like 33 there, also with some scattered storms, and then overnight around the GTA with that patchy fog, mid-teens. Tomorrow, upper 20s, getting there. Humidex still not uncomfortable at 31. Becomes uncomfortable by about Sunday into Monday, and you are going to need to have frequent breaks, lots of water. Take it easy, Kelda.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Colette.
This weather update is brought to you by Train. For a limited time, take advantage of 36 equal payments and 0% financing. It's hard to stop a train.
Finally, tonight, after a pandemic disrupted the school year, many students feel they've fallen behind in their studies. For those heading to university next year, that can lead to anxiety and stress. So the University of Toronto has launched a free course to help students get back on track. Ali Chiasson has the story.
So this is a program we call the University of Toronto Engineering Academy. We piloted it really quickly last year.
Engineers problem solve. That's their thing. The Faculty of Engineering at U of T anticipated after a year of online learning during a pandemic that students may be behind. So they came up with a solution for future first years.
We really need to ensure that we can bring the curriculum to a level that we're comfortable with in terms of what we expect for the fall.
The free summer program is a review of some of the core grade 12 concepts in physics, chemistry, and math. It also introduces students to the new concepts they'll be learning in first year, with upper year student mentors helping them along the way. Without something like this, Caroline Choi says going from grade 12 to freshman,
it would have been terrifying.
She feels she missed out on some critical math this year.
Vectors are kind of like very important to linear algebra, which to my understanding is one of the courses that I'll be taking in either the second semester or my second year. And I've done like some in the sense that I know what a vector is, but I can't really manipulate it very well. And I don't really know how like all the matrices work and all of that stuff. So I'm very excited to cover that because I would like to learn it.
So for me, I took grade 12 physics and calculus and advanced portion of grade 11. So it's been over a year now, so obviously I've forgotten a few of those things.
Even these high achievers need the extra help.
This program will help me a lot because it's gonna help me refresh my memory and sharpen my skills a bit more and get me prepped up for the university experience.
We know we have to probably adjust our expectations in terms of the incoming class.
Engineering Dean Christopher Yip says universities have a big role to play in